So you said that you have a fear that you hope that you don't mess up. You see, more important is to recognize that as long as it is a phenomenal relationship like this, there are going to be mess ups. You see, mess ups are inevitable and mess ups will happen from both sides. You see, you have to be very forgiving to yourself and you have to be forgiving of the other also. Because what happens is that when we get into these relationships, there is going to be differences of opinion, different ideas that both of us are carrying. And when ideas are different, in the play of the world, it can seem like some clash can happen because of different ideas. So recognize that this will happen in the relationship between any two people, but it can seem like it is much more strong, much more hurtful, much more difficult when it is in such an intimate, close relationship, like boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband, wife, these kind of relationships. It can seem like it is a lot of uh, suffering, a lot of pain can come because of these. But you have to just be forgiving, allow yourself your mistakes, know that mistakes are going to happen, and don't be too much caught up in trying to be right. Just remember that all of this is conceptual. So actually there is no right or wrong. And most of arguments or trouble in relationships comes because one is trying to prove that they are right and another is trying to say that no, they are right. So don't be so concerned about trying to be right all the time. Allow things to flow. And even if you recognize that there are some wrong notions which your partner might seem to have, wrong perceptions about you or the world, don't be too much in a rush to fix it. You can point them out gently, you can knock gently and see if there's openness to that kind of conversation. And then you can start pointing things out. But also remember that you have to be as open. The more open you are, you will find that even your partner is open to feedback. So all my blessings are there for this relationship, and all relationships. And it might sound a bit funny or strange to say, but whatever is the play of this grace, all my blessings are for that. There was one friend who was, of course, much older than you. He was staying with me at one point. So he said to me, Ananta, that when the relationship happened, so much grace was flowing. So much grace was flowing. Everything was grace. But now see where we have come. And I reminded him that everything is grace actually. It is not that grace was flowing only then and now it is stopped. So remember that everything that is happening is grace for both of you. And ultimately all of it is providing you so much opportunity for a recognition of the truth, for your self-inquiry. So as much as you can, it is not 100% possible in any relationship to go completely open, but go as much open as possible. And may your relationship be like the relationship that space can have with space, or air can have with air. You'll find that so much joy will come, even in the apologizing after the messing up. it can feel like, no, I don't want to do that. But you'll find so much sweetness is there. Later, when you look back at relationships, you will see that those moments were also very sweet. So don't worry about not messing up. You are going to. And she is also going to. So these are going to happen. You see? But all your satsang, all your insights about yourself will come in use. Because the ego, the mind will try to use the relationship to convince you that you are an individual and you are right. You see? Many times it will come to convince you that you are right and thereby convincing you that you are a person, that that you are an individual. And this is where your satsang will help. Sometimes in moments of anger or moments of high intensity, some angry words will be spoken from either side. You see, it is a part of every relationship. You see? But then when that is gone, when you're back to your spaciousness, then don't hold on to this idea, no, I was right to do that, or she was wrong to do this to me. Be quick to apologize. Be quick to forgive also. I wish you the very best in this new relationship, and may it bring so much light into your life. And if you want to speak something more, I'm unmuting your mic.
Okay, actually, thank you, Father. And I just want to expose like two last thing. It feels like I have some like two like biggest expectations about this kind of thing. That the first one is like I want her to know about those kind of spirituality things like me, because I mean it is so important for me. And I find myself like living like close in the corner, and trying to sort of like introduce her to this, but I know that it's really hard, because even with my family I can't do it until now. And along with that is it seems like there is the assumption that I kind of there was a superiority feelings in me, like because I know those kind of things, so I'm kind of higher than everyone because I'm spiritual and stuff. And I just want to speak it out. And also there's a fear of messing up, but also sometimes I see those really nice kind of relationships in the Sangha, and they post it in social medias, and I have the hope that, yeah, maybe I can do something different, it doesn't have to be painful all the times. Like I can have a really like sweet relationships like for my whole life, and die like peacefully and recognize the truth together, and it will be so good. And yeah, so those two kind of expectations is really big. And yeah, and I just want to expose this here somehow. Yeah.
This is very good. And I'm going to tell you something that will give you a lot of trouble. I'm going to say something which will save you a lot of trouble. And actually, if someone had told me this when I got married or when I started to become spiritual, and somebody had told me immediately, I feel like a lot of trouble could have been saved here. Of course, I see all of that was also grace. But since you're here now, I will use this opportunity to tell you this. You must be responsive to how open she is in that moment. You see? You must never try to make somebody more spiritual, or tell them about something greater that you know. You must have a sense of how much resonance is there. That's why I say that with our loved ones, we must knock very gently. Knock gently and see if there's some, resonance, something is being heard. You see? Now, you heard this probably, but it was a few years ago. What happened here a few years ago was that, many years ago now, of course, was that as I started getting into the inquiry and getting into spirituality, then Garima would sometimes, my wife, she would sometimes have a bad day at work, you see. And this is the one instance which I really remember, because I was really being a spiritual jerk at that time. You see. So what would happen then is that she would come from a bad day at work and say, this one said this to me, and this happened, and I asked them to get this done, and they were just not doing it. You see, these kind of things. And I said, I would say, so who is the I to whom all this is happening? You see? And she would get really upset because she was expecting to speak to her husband and vent out her problems. She was not even expecting solutions. You see? The other mistake that I've seen in relationships is that one can seem like is always offering solutions. You see? but actually what they're looking for is just some understanding, some resonance that you had to go through this, and I'm really sorry you had a bad day. Instead of that, if you go in and say, "Can you investigate who is the one who had the bad day?" You see, it can seem like a lack of compassion actually, and it might not be your intent. But when there is some specialness, like you mentioned, that I have something special, let me show her how we can, deal with life. When we have that kind of arrogance hidden somewhere, then all this can come in this way. Where, and actually, Adya said very beautifully once, Adya Shanti, he said, there could be that every word that you're saying is true. You see, it could be that every word that you're saying is true, but you could still be a jerk. You see, so how is that possible? Only when we are not operating in the moment with resonance to what is. We're just trying to show that we have a solution, or we have some better understanding of life or knowledge of life. You see, this does not mean that you have to become sheep and hide your own truth. You see, it's a fine balance in a way. You see, you don't have to be like sheep and say no, no. uh, I'm also caught up in my mind all the time. You see, this kind of thing. You don't have to say things like that. You can say that I found a lot of peace in discovering that I am beyond this body, beyond this mind. But there are many times in which I still identify as this. So you can be true to your truth and never put your partner down for her truth as she is experiencing at that point of time. So one time I even went to, before I met Guruji, I used to visit Ramesh Balsekar very often, you know this most probably. So at one time I even asked him, so I said to him, this inquiry, who am I, coming to this recognition is bringing so much happiness here. But when I speak to my wife, she just doesn't want to do any of this. She doesn't understand what should I do. So he told me something which also helped a lot. He said, wait for her to come to you. And this is something that is true for any interaction in life, any relationship in life. See? And you'll find that usually I don't speak so much about these things unless I'm invited. So you'll find that that will really, really be something that will help in the relationship, because you know our partners are always good at smelling where something is coming from. If they get a whiff of specialness or arrogance, then it can be very hurtful in any relationship.
Yeah.
If you cannot burden your relationship with too many expectations, because that can create a big burden. If your benchmark is really high, then when this squabbling happens, when some tension happens, when some trouble happens, then you can feel like you compare against that. You see? So I would even say just try to have a very normal, regular relationship. And if it turns out that it is the best forever relationship, then that is a great thing. You see? But if you put so much pressure on it and say that it has to be the world's best forever lasting, you see, unlike other relationships that you have seen, then it can create some sort of unnatural expectation from it. I know that when we are young, of course, everyone gets into a relationship hoping that it is going to be the best ever, you see, and that's not a bad thing. It's this feeling of the love that you're experiencing being the strongest that you can feel for anyone. All this is very good. Just in the way of how it should function on a day-to-day basis, don't don't burden it with too much high expectation. And look at all of this as advice from a man with some gray hair, not necessarily spiritual advice, but just having gone through this phase in my life here, I can also offer this advice.